Sometimes the smallest swaps can make the biggest difference. Today I'm sharing 15 everyday swaps that work for me. They aren't extreme changes or expensive upgrades, just practical swaps that will help your home function better, save you money, and cut down on that everyday clutter. I love this one so much. It's literally one of my favorite swaps that I've ever done, and that is to use jars, like canning jars of all different sizes, to store my everyday ingredients instead of keeping them with the packaging that they originally came in. And this one here has saved me a ton of money over time because things aren't hidden anymore. In fact, these clear jars, I can actually see exactly where I'm at. So if it's running low, I can go buy the stuff at the store. And if it's not, I can say, okay, yeah, I don't need that. Everything stays fresh because those canning jars have a gasket, so it's nice and sealed. And because it's sealed, there's absolutely no spills like I used to have when I had all of those loose packages. I've been using a sponge to wash my dishes for a really long time. Until recently, I read an article that went over a study that was done in Germany, and this study confirmed that there were over 362 different types of bacteria on sponges. Well, that did it for me and my use of sponges. I switched out to these really thin, kind of scrunchy things, and basically they are sort of almost like the top layer of a sponge, but there's no bottom layer. And they are reusable, so I can just toss them in the wash and get rid of any of those contaminants. I stopped using paper towels for my everyday cleaning needs about 10 years ago. And you're not going to believe what I switched them out for. Baby washcloths. I know it's funny, but they are literally the perfect size for my hands. You know, I don't have that big of hands, so when I squeeze them out, it just lets go of all the water. Plus, these are highly absorbent. And one tip when you're buying these is make sure to get the 100% cotton ones. They just work a whole lot better. This one little swap has saved me time from getting these things from the store, money that I would have to outlay every time I bought them, and also all the space that they used to take up because they're so bulky. And pretty much the only time I ever use paper towels now is when I have to clean my windows. And I'll make sure to link my homemade cleaner recipe in the description below for you. We have a lot of allergies in our home, and it's not just breathing allergies, it's also skin irritations. So when my son started getting irritated with the laundry detergent I was using, I made sure to change my entire laundry routine. I used to use those little fabric softener sheets, but I don't use them anymore. I actually bought these little balls, and they're wool balls, and you just put them in your dryer, and it makes all of the wrinkles come out of your clothes. But not only that, it's got an additional benefit of letting your clothes dry faster. And I rarely have to replace these little wool balls, unlike constantly having to buy the boxes of fabric softener sheets. One thing I swapped out is having carnivorous drawers where everything is all spread out and I have to dig through them to find exactly what I'm looking for. I don't know if you have this problem, but I really did. And my kitchen, I don't have very many drawers, so I really needed to make real good use of that space. So last year, and I'll link this video below too, I did my kitchen organization video where I implemented these bamboo dividers, and some of them even stack in my deep drawer. So the things that I don't use as often are below, and the things I use all the time are raised up, so that when I shut my drawer, I am using all of the space that goes up and down. I guess that's the height. I'm using all of my height, my width, and my depth. My drawers are so much more functional than they used to be. I know a lot of us use gift bags to gift things, but I love using wrapping paper. I just love all the crisp corners. I love adding a beautiful bow, and I just love the presentation of it. That said, I used to have a ton of wrapping paper for every occasion, whether it was a wedding, a graduation, Christmas, birthdays. But what I did was I decided to swap out all of those special occasion wrapping paper for just a couple neutral ones that I can use for every single occasion. This one sort of falls in line with my party supplies that I talked about in my Fearless Decluttering video, which I'll link that one below. And more than having all of these different kinds of special occasion wrapping papers, I used to store them in one of those big plastic bins with a lid. And oftentimes I would have even more paper than would fit in that thing, or I would have a roll that was too tall and it wouldn't fit in there either. I don't have to hunt around for the specific one I'm looking for, and I don't have to think. I just have to grab that wrapping paper and enjoy the experience of wrapping my gift. So after that experience, I decided from here on out, if I buy a small appliance, it's going to have to do more than just one thing. I've never owned a label maker myself, but I have used them. And when I wanted to label some things in my home, I really did contemplate getting one of these things, but I swapped that idea out for just plain labels and markers. And I got this idea actually from the Minimal Mom. She was labeling some storage bins, and I thought, oh, that is so cute. I love it. So I went ahead and got chalk markers and just plain labels, and I labeled all of my holiday decor. And it is just so nice because now when I tell one of my kids or my husband, hey, can you go get me that one box? They'll know exactly what it is because it has a label. It's awesome. So if you're in the market for labeling some things, maybe don't go the route of a label maker. Maybe just, if you have good handwriting, write it out yourself. And if you don't have good handwriting, or you find it hard to use it with small labels, like I did for my jars in my kitchen, just go ahead and get the ones that are pre-made. They work just as well, and it's so much less hassle and a lot less expensive. Back here in my island, I keep my stoneware. And with stoneware, you're not supposed to touch them together. You're not supposed to stack them. They're supposed to just lay flat because they can chip if they come in contact with one another. So what I did was, instead of those felt things that I used to use, I don't know if you've ever seen them, but it's supposed to be sort of a separator. And they always kind of got moved around and never really stayed in place. But that's not the case with these placemats. And what I did was just slide those placemats right in between each of my stoneware pieces. It worked out so good. And my second swap is I swapped out my shelf liner in my pots and pans cabinet for placemats. So you know how when you have heavy items and you go to slide them out and then your shelf liner just crumples up? Well, these heavy duty placemats, they just stay in place. They don't move. They never rip like shelf liner sometimes even rips. It's so much less of a hassle to pull out a pot or a pan and not have to fix the liner underneath it. One of the things that has saved me a ton of money, time, and space is swapping out impulse purchases for intentional purchases. I have a little rule for myself with this one. If something is over $100, I absolutely do not buy it for a period of 48 hours. And I don't care if it's on clearance, if it's the best deal ever, or if a sale is going to end. Because all the time I would purchase these things on impulse, and almost all of those things never really worked out for me. It's really amazing how much time and money is saved when you don't buy impulse purchases. For instance, if you go in your kitchen right now and you look in your cabinets, you look in your drawers, how many of those purchases were intentional and how many are clogging up your space because they were unintentional impulse purchases? Those things can really get us. I was a cookbook collector. If I bought one cookbook from an author, I bought all of the cookbooks from that author. If they came out with a new one every year, I always bought it. But I never ever used these things. They just sat on my shelf looking pretty. You're not going to believe this, but out of all of those cookbooks, I had maybe 5 recipes total that I actually used. And so what I did was I swapped out all of those cookbooks for just one handwritten one that doesn't take up hardly any space, and it now just fits in my drawer, right in my kitchen, because I couldn't even put those cookbooks that I had before in my kitchen. There was just too many of them. So this is so convenient. Every time I get it out, I just think to myself, this was a really good swap. Now this next one actually might be useful for you if you do cook rice all the time, even on an everyday basis. But for me, that wasn't the case, but I bought it anyway. And that is a rice cooker. I just thought this thing is going to be so great. But really all it did was take up a bunch of space in my cabinet. Everything in my kitchen really does need to earn its place. So after I realized my mistake, I let that rice cooker go, and I just started using my rounded bottom pot, which ended up making my rice just as good as that rice cooker. And you know what else? I'm able to use this pot for multiple different purposes. I use it to boil things. I use it to make soup. I used to have an apple corer, and I'm not just talking the one that you set down and it slices your apple. I'm talking about the thing that had the crank and it sliced the apple, it cored the apple, and it was just a lot to maintain. And it really was kind of an overwhelming experience to use, and not only to use, but to clean afterwards. What I swapped it out for is just my peeler that I use for potatoes and carrots already, and my knife. I live in an area where we have all 4 seasons, and it's just fun to change up your clothes, to bring out the new stuff and put away the things that you're kind of tired of wearing. That said, every year when it would get so cold out and my ears would get cold and I'd have to smush my hair down with a hat, oh, I just hated that. So I decided to make a change, and I swapped out my hats for earmuffs. I just have one earmuff. I don't have 10 hats anymore that I have to keep track of or try to match with my, different coat or whatever. It's just one earmuff. It's easy to throw in my bag. I never lose it, and it keeps my ears warm, so it does its job. I used to love a big handbag, the kind that has absolutely no organization. So what I did to rectify that was I had all of these little pouches, and then I would have to remember, okay, I'm looking for ibuprofen. So was that in the yellow pouch or the black pouch? It just got to be a lot. And actually I had so many things in my handbag that I never even needed. I was just hauling this gigantic thing around all the time. So about a year ago, when I went on a trip, I saw a handbag that was just perfect. And it fit everything that I actually needed, all of my essentials. The best part is it actually has dividers. So on the top it has 2 zippers. And on one side I keep certain things, and on the other side I keep other things. I have literally never had organization in a handbag before, but I'll tell you this, I am never going back to my old digging ways and having way too many things in my bag. And if for some reason I don't have enough room in my bag, if I'm going to be out for a long day, I just bring my tote bag and I'll put my water bottle in it. I can put anything I buy into that bag. And I also keep some healthy snacks just in case I get hungry. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you're able to use some of these tips. If you have some that I didn't mention, make sure you leave me a comment below, because I am always looking for great ways to make my life easier. I post new videos every Thursday on simple and minimalist living, decluttering and organizing, making your home cozy, and ways to live your best life. So if this sounds good to you, make sure you hit that subscribe button.